Connor's mom, Betsy, gave us a copy of his memorial service to help us understand how she came to grips with her conflict and anger.
In the middle of the night before we had nursing care, I would curse God for inflicting my precious baby with such an awful, torturous disease. He would cry and I would cry, and all I could ask God was why? Why my baby? He's just an innocent baby who never did anything to anyone. But I was wrong. Connor did a lot to us. He changed us. He made us better.
On that solemn day, she also acknowledged that she and Connor's father, John, loved their son the most they possibly could.
He loved his daddy so much. And I know John thinks that Connor loved the TV more than he loved him. But when John wasn't looking, Connor would be staring at him. And Connor knew that he was loved.
Cross Country traveled to Savannah, Georgia to learn more about Connor, a teaching soul whose short life reached far beyond family and friends. And to think, it began with a reference like this. There's a bombing issue that I need to bring up.
A truck that exploded, dynamite truck. In June of 1971, Tommy, who was 26 at the time, and his wife and little child were coming back home to Atlanta, and the traffic was backed up. And they rode down close to where a truck and a car had collided. And just as they got out of the car, there was a tremendous explosion that knocked them down, and a piece of the shrapnel from the truck actually went through Tommy.
As you recall, Tommy dying as a result of the explosion was a loss that directed me to deliver messages from Betsy's infant son.
When Connor was, I guess, about 2 months old, I knew that something was wrong with Connor. We jokingly said he was floppy, or called him floppy, because he couldn't move like other babies could. And so I had persisted a bit with the doctor about what was wrong, because I knew something was wrong. He wasn't eating, he wasn't swallowing. We can hear that congestion, and what that was, now that we look back, was he was strangling on his saliva. He couldn't swallow, literally strangling, because he was already deteriorating and didn't have the muscle tone to swallow. It was a few months before we really got a formal diagnosis of SMA type 1. In the meantime,
we started looking up on the internet,
yes,
and found out what SMA was, and realized that was the worst possible thing
that kids with SMA type 1 aren't expected to live past the age of 2. So we had to learn how to clear his lungs, and how to suction, and how to cough for him is what he had to do. He had to cough. Emotionally, that was very difficult to, that wasn't what I thought I was signing up for, I thought I was going to have a perfect family, and then I ended up having to be a nurse, and of a child that had a fatal disease. I mean, in all that we did for him, we knew at that point that no matter how much we took care of him or tried to do this, he's going to die anyway. Even after all this care, he's not going to make it. We had made the decision that eventually, that if he had to go back to the hospital, that we wouldn't do that. We would just stay at home. And I had instructions for the nurses, look, we don't call 911 because if they couldn't handle it with the machines that we had there, then I didn't want anyone touching him. I wanted him to die at home if that was what I did not want the drama at the hospital. And if that meant losing him sooner, I would rather lose him sooner in comfort than hang on, for my sake, and lose him later.
Betsy also made his life just more of a little adventure, like John had talked about, and every 13th of the month he had a birthday party, because he was born on July 13th. Since we knew he wouldn't have years, he had a birthday party each 13th of the month.
We had many cakes.
So we had a cake and candles and presents and guests. Family came around, and we had a birthday party for him.
It was hard, and it was hard on the marriage. It was just difficult to focus on anything, but I mean, we were taking care of Connor, and that was the #1 thing. So, you know, it was hard to nurture other aspects of your life.
Since Connor's passing, Betsy has remarried and is raising 2 girls. John, Connor's father, remains a part of her life as she puts her energy into a very positive place.
In honor of Connor, I have a business that's called Connor's Place, and before Connor had gotten sick, I had worked with violence prevention, and I had actually worked with abused children and done substance abuse education. And when Connor passed away, I did get back into that work. That's what I know, and I felt like my energy would be best used. It is such a joy every day to answer the phone at work and say, Connor's Place, you know, and I get to say his name. To me, he is alive. To me, I feel like I go visit Connor every day when I go to work. He's all around me. His pictures are up on the wall, and I get to talk about him and honor him every day, all day, every day.
Connor's story shows us that guidance, hope, and happiness come from both loved ones here in the physical world, as well as those who have crossed over. Even though he was here for just a brief time, Connor was and is a teaching soul. Remember earlier in the show when